I wasn't looking for anything. That's what gets me about it. I wasn't digging, I wasn't suspicious, not really. I was just bored, waiting for my coffee at a place near the office. Scrolling through Instagram, *ling time between meetings. That's how it started. A friend of a friend had posted something, one of those stories you tap through without thinking. People smiling, clinking glasses, conference tags, celebratory captions, corporate stuff. One photo caught my attention for a split second. Not because of who posted it, but because of the background. The moment my brain registered what I was seeing, everything around me sort of muted. There she was, Haley. It wasn't even a clear *T of her. Just a candid, off-center capture. Like someone had taken a picture of their colleagues at a networking event, and she had been walking past. But I knew her. That unmistakable red dress I'd never seen before. The curve of her jawline. The glass of champagne in her hand. Her smile, wide and unburdened. The kind I hadn't seen in our house in I don't know how long. The caption read, "The team celebrating a successful project. Seattle vibes bottle with popping cork sparkles #wins #conference life. Seattle." But she told me she was in Denver. She had said it so casually earlier that week. "Client site visit," she called it. "Super dry. I'll be back Friday night." I even asked if she wanted me to fly out and meet her afterward, make a weekend of it. She *T it down with a laugh and said, "Next time. This one's strictly business." Strictly business. Denver. Not Seattle. My stomach sank. I stared at the photo, zooming in slowly like it would change the truth. Like maybe I was wrong. Maybe it wasn't her. But it was. I saved the picture to my phone, then turned off the screen and just sat there. Everything felt suddenly still. Like a pause button had been hit on my life. I didn't say anything that night. I told myself I needed more context. That maybe there was a logical explanation. Maybe the post was old like a throwback. Maybe she had a layover. Maybe there was some tiny, believable reason she was in Seattle, wearing a red dress she never mentioned owning, drinking champagne with a team she claimed she didn't work with on this trip. She came home late that night. I heard her key in the lock around 11:40 p.m. Her suitcase thumped softly as she set it down in the hallway. I didn't get up from the couch. I wanted to see how she'd greet me. Maybe she'd mention something first. Maybe she'd say, "Hey, weird story. I ended up in Seattle for a day." But she didn't. She walked into the living room with that tired traveler's posture. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. And the first thing I noticed, other than her fatigue, was her scent. It wasn't her usual perfume, the one I had given her last Christmas. This one was sweeter, floral, with a trace of something musky. Not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. Like hotel soap and someone else's cologne layered underneath. "Hey, babe," she said, leaning down to kiss the top of my head. I caught the faintest tremor in her voice, like she was trying a little too hard to sound normal. "How was Denver?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She sighed and rolled her eyes slightly. "Exhausting. The client was a nightmare. We barely left the hotel. I'm dead on my feet." I nodded, waited a beat. Then, very casually, "Oh, weird. I saw something from that girl you met at the last summit. Ashley?" She posted a pic from Seattle. Looked like a work thing. She froze for half a second. Just one blink too long. Then she laughed. A short, practiced laugh and said, "Oh, that was from last year. They recycle photos all the time. You know, these teams trying to look busy for social media. That was from last spring. I still had bangs back then." She didn't have bangs in the photo. I smiled, but something inside me coiled tight. "Huh," I said. "Guess it just threw me off." She shrugged and disappeared into the kitchen, calling out something about being starving. I followed her with my eyes, watching the way she moved. Efficient, detached, like she was performing the role of wife home from a long trip. But the script wasn't quite clicking. I noticed she didn't take off her shoes. Haley always hated wearing them indoors. That was one of our weird household rules. She said it made the place feel like a home, not a hotel. When she came back with a glass of water, I asked, "You didn't wear that red dress on the trip, did you?" She blinked. What dress? The one you wore to Nick and Tasha's wedding. I think I saw it in that pic. Just thought it looked familiar. She paused, then smiled again, more confident this time. Oh, that one's packed away somewhere. I haven't worn it in months. Why? No reason, I said. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling while she breathed softly next to me, wondering if the woman I married had just lied to my face, and done it well. She never brought up Seattle again, never offered extra details. But the lie was in the silence. In the way she changed the subject, the way she didn't ask me about my week, the way she acted like she had checked a box. Home. Safe. Nothing to explain. But something had shifted. I didn't even need confirmation. It wasn't about the dress, the city, or the champagne. It was the ease of the lie, the way she spun it without hesitation. Haley was never good at lying before, or maybe I had just never caught her. A few days later, I found myself staring at that saved photo on my phone again. I zoomed in on her face. The smile wasn't just happy, it was free, like someone who didn't owe anyone anything, like someone who didn't have a husband at home waiting for her to get back from Denver. That image haunted me, because once you see something like that, once your brain starts catching the little glitches, you can't unsee it. You start playing back old conversations, little moments, and wondering if they were also lies wearing makeup. I kept asking myself, if it was nothing, why lie? If there was nothing to hide, why the need to spin a new version of the story? The problem wasn't just the deception, it was how natural it came to her. Like she'd practiced it, like she'd done it before. I didn't say anything for days. I let her talk, let her pretend. I watched, and with every word she said, I listened more carefully. Not to what she was saying, but to what she wasn't. It's a strange feeling, realizing you've become a background character in your own marriage. That your partner is living a version of themselves that you don't get access to. That you're being handled, managed, placated. And still, I said nothing, because in some twisted way, I wasn't ready to confront it. Not yet. After that night, things started to click into place. You know how you can live through something and not fully register it? Like your brain is putting post-it notes on little moments but doesn't connect the dots until later? That's what it felt like. Like the truth had been waiting for permission to speak, and now it was screaming. I didn't confront Haley. Not directly. But my mind turned into a camera reel, flipping back through the last few months, replaying moments I had dismissed. And suddenly, everything felt different. Not wrong in an obvious way, just hollow like a song slightly out of tune. The phone was the first thing I noticed. She used to leave it around the house all the time. Kitchen counter, bathroom sink, on the arm of the couch. Never used to care. But now, that thing never left her hand. She carried it from room to room like it was oxygen. Took it into the shower sometimes. Said she was catching up on podcasts. Started charging it in the kitchen while cooking. Something she'd never done before. Once, I asked her if I could look up a recipe on it, and she hesitated. Said it was acting up and gave me her laptop instead. And then came the late-night calls. She said they were from work, just teammates in different time zones. At first, I believed it. But one night, I passed by the bathroom door and heard her laughing. It was light, flirty, soft. Not the way she laughed when I made jokes. This was different. I paused outside the door, listening. A man's voice on speaker, low, confident. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. When I knocked, the call ended abruptly. She opened the door a moment later, wrapped in a towel and smiling like nothing happened. I asked who it was. Just work stuff, she said. You okay? I nodded, but I wasn't. I just didn't have the words yet. That's when I started noticing her eyes. They didn't stay with me. When we talked, she looked past me or through me. She stopped asking how my day was. She stopped answering when I asked about hers. Her smiles were shorter, her silences longer. She began eating dinner with one hand, the other scrolling through her phone under the table. And I don't know how to explain it, but she became focused in a cold way, like she was mentally somewhere else, with someone else. And then there was the jewelry receipt. It showed up in our email one afternoon. A confirmation from some boutique store downtown. Her name, her card, a purchase for nearly $400. I remember staring at the email like maybe it had been sent by mistake. I didn't recognize the store. I never saw any new jewelry at home. When I asked her casually if she bought anything new, she blinked at me like she didn't understand the question. "Oh, just a work gift for someone," she said. "One of the girls on my team had a baby." A baby? No name. No follow-up. And just like that, the lie was folded and tucked away. After that, I began paying attention to her wardrobe. Haley had always been stylish, but there was a shift. Her closet filled with new pieces. Sharper cuts, deeper necklines, heels she hadn't worn in years. One night, I came home early and caught her doing her makeup before dinner. We weren't going anywhere. She said she just felt like dressing up for herself. She wore lipstick that stained her wine glass, then wiped it off before bed. That same night, I noticed money had started disappearing from our shared account. Not in massive amounts, but little withdrawals here and there. Rideshare apps, small hotel charges, spa services she never mentioned, a boutique wine shop we'd never been to together. Once, I saw a transaction from a florist and asked if she'd sent someone flowers. She just smiled and said, "You ask the funniest questions." She never used to deflect like that. The woman I married used to over-explain everything. She used to text me from the checkout line with price comparisons. Now she moved through our shared financial life like she was window shopping. No accountability, just disappearance. And the biggest thing? The bed. She stopped falling asleep beside me. It started with, "I'm just gonna read a bit in the guest room." Then it was, "I've got an early call. Might crash over there so I don't wake you." Eventually, she just stopped showing up at all. Our bed, once a shared space, became mine. I started sleeping diagonally. I stopped waiting for the door to open. And when I did hear footsteps in the hall late at night, they walked right past. Even the way she touched me changed. Or rather, stopped. She used to reach for my hand while we watched movies, lean into me during cold mornings, ruffle my hair absent-mindedly when I cooked. Now she stood further away. Her hugs were quick, her kisses dry. The warmth was gone. I felt like furniture, something she had once chosen but no longer needed. I remember one morning, I tried to kiss her before she left for work. She turned her cheek, barely registered the gesture. "I'm running late," she said, already halfway out the door. That was when it really started to sink in. The house had grown quiet, not peaceful, empty, like I was living with a stranger who knew where everything was but had stopped seeing me altogether. And still, I said nothing. I convinced myself I was imagining things, that maybe this was just a rough patch, that maybe I was being paranoid, insecure, that I was the problem. That's the cruel part of suspicion. It doesn't hit you all at once. It trickles in like a leak in the ceiling, drip by drip, until you're soaked before you even realize it. One night, she forgot to lock her phone, just left it face up on the kitchen counter while she showered. I stood there staring at it for 10 full minutes. I didn't touch it. I didn't open anything. But the fact that I even considered it, that I stood frozen with my heart in my throat like I was about to commit a crime, told me everything. That was the moment I realized I no longer trusted her. It wasn't about a specific message or photo. It was about the weight of weeks of patterns of her vanishing presence. About the hundreds of little ways she had started exiting our life without saying goodbye. And still, she smiled like nothing had changed. Still texted me on my way home, like we were just two people trying to get through the week. But I knew better now. I was no longer asking if something was wrong. I was just waiting for proof. And once you start waiting for proof, you already know the answer. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I was already in a bad mood that morning. Slept like hell, woke up late, spilled coffee on my shirt. Haley was rushing around too, keys jangling, muttering under her breath about how everything breaks when you need it most. Her car wouldn't start. She tried the ignition twice, swore softly, then slammed the door. "I'll just call a taxi," she snapped, already pulling out her phone. "I don't have time for this today." "Want me to take a look at it later?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She paused for half a second, as if weighing whether to trust me with anything at all. Then just waved her hand. Whatever. It's probably the battery. She left without another word. I watched from the window as the taxi pulled away. She didn't look back once. The house was silent again. I didn't mean to go out to the car right away. But after an hour of pretending to work, I couldn't help myself. Curiosity got the better of me, mixed with something darker. Not suspicion anymore. Something closer to certainty. That gut feeling you can't talk yourself out of anymore. When I opened the car door, the Bluetooth system lit up automatically. The screen blinked a familiar greeting, connected to Haley's iPhone. And then, without prompting, it began to play the last audio file she'd listened to. It was a voice message. Not a call. Not music. Just a saved voice message, queued up like it had been played before. The kind of thing you don't replay unless you want to hear it again. At first, I thought it was a podcast. The voice was calm, slow, male. Then I listened harder. God, I miss you, the voice said. Miss your laugh, your neck, your stupid jokes. I keep thinking about this weekend, how you looked in that dress. Or out of it. I'm glad you told him. About the divorce. I know it wasn't easy. I didn't breathe. The voice kept going. He talked about some wine they'd shared. A cabin they were thinking about booking. He told her to take it easy today. Said he loved her laugh. And that he hoped she was okay after the long flight. And then the message ended. That was it. Maybe 30 seconds. Maybe eternity. I sat there, alone in her car, staring at the dashboard. The words echoing through the empty cabin like a ghost had just spoken directly to me. I played it again. Not because I needed clarification, but because my body hadn't caught up with my mind. Because some part of me thought if I heard it again, it might sound different. Like maybe I had misunderstood the tone. Maybe I'd imagined it. But no, it was real. He said, I'm glad you told him. He said, the divorce. And that's when I realized I wasn't even in the story anymore. I was something she had already ended, even if she hadn't said it out loud. She'd moved on, started over, maybe even rewritten the narrative completely in her head. Meanwhile, I was still here, clinging to a version of our life that no longer existed. I turned off the ignition, sat back, let silence settle in like dust. It was strange, how calm I felt. Not angry, not heartbroken, not yet, anyway, just cold, like someone had hit a switch. All the doubts, the late nights, the weird phone habits, the sudden wardrobe changes. All of it had led here. And now I had a name. Lucas. He didn't say it in the message, but I knew who it was. The way she lit up when she mentioned his name in passing. Lucas had the best presentation today, she once said over dinner. Lucas thinks we should pitch to the Portland office. Lucas this, Lucas that. I didn't think much of it back then. Just another coworker in the rotating cast of people I never met. But now, every reference snapped into place like puzzle pieces. Lucas was the voice in the car. Lucas was the man she was traveling with. Lucas was who she thought about when she smiled to herself at night, lying next to me and pretending nothing had changed. I stepped out of the car slowly, feeling like I was waking up from a dream that had lasted months. Everything around me looked the same, the lawn, the sky, the mailbox tilted slightly to the left. But I wasn't the same. I walked back into the house and sat down at the kitchen table. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the wood grain of the table like it held some secret answer I hadn't seen before. She had told him about the divorce. That meant she had imagined our end before I ever saw it coming. While I was still folding laundry and planning our anniversary, she was whispering futures to someone else. And I thought, how long had I been living next to this lie? The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the performance, the pretending, the cold logic of it. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Dozens of them, made over and over, day after day, while I sat across from her at dinner asking how her meeting went. It wasn't an accident. It was strategy. I thought about all the times I tried to give her space. All the nights I said, it's okay. Work comes first. Thinking I was being supportive. Thinking I was helping. I was giving her room to breathe, and she used that space to disappear. I think that broke me more than anything. I stayed in the house all day. Didn't move. Didn't eat. Just sat. At one point, I opened my laptop and stared at the search bar. Typed in divorce lawyer and then deleted it. I wasn't ready yet. I didn't want logistics. I wanted understanding. I wanted answers to questions I hadn't figured out how to ask yet. When she got home that evening, I said nothing. I watched her walk in, put down her bag, kick off her shoes. She looked tired, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just burned down our life. She kissed my cheek and said, "Sorry again about the car. I'll take it in tomorrow." I nodded. That was it. The whole thing felt absurd. She was lying to me inside a reality I had already proven false. Like she was playing a character in a show I no longer watched. She walked past me into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and asked what I wanted to do for dinner. And I just stood there, nodding, heart numb. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in the dark, listening to her breathe beside me, and felt like I was sharing a bed with a stranger. Not just a stranger, but someone who had led a version of me without remorse. I knew I had crossed a line. Not with her, with myself. There was no going back to ignorance now. No unknowing. The story had changed, and I wasn't the narrator anymore. And that voice, Lucas, was still echoing in my ears. There was no big confrontation. No screaming. No shattered glasses. No thrown suitcases or ultimatums. Just silence, the kind that wraps around you and doesn't let go. After that voice message in her car, after hearing Lucas talk about my wife like she was already his, something in me switched off. I didn't explode. I evaporated. That night I went through the motions. Ate dinner like I had an appetite. Asked about her day like I cared. She responded in vague little bursts, tapping away at her phone under the table like always. Probably texting him. I nodded, smiled, made some joke about leftovers and how we always forget them in the fridge. She laughed. It sounded like it used to, but I knew better now. It was hollow, a sound she made out of habit, not affection. She had no idea I knew, and I didn't plan to tell her. Not yet. Instead, I began subtracting myself from our life, quietly, methodically. I stopped reaching for her hand, stopped kissing her goodnight. I moved to the guest room, claiming I was having trouble sleeping. She asked if something was wrong. I said no. She didn't press. I cooked for one. I did laundry only for myself. I pulled my clothes out of our shared closet and arranged them neatly in the dresser in the guest room. I took down our framed photos slowly over several days. When she noticed, she raised an eyebrow. "Redecorating?" she asked. "Just felt like changing things up," I said. She nodded, turned back to her phone. I think she expected an explosion. Maybe she was afraid of it. Maybe she had prepared herself for a dramatic blow-up, a crying fit, a slammed door, something loud and angry that would validate her betrayal, give her a reason to play the victim. But it never came. All she got was distance, controlled, surgical silence. And that, I think, unnerved her more than anything. At first, she tried to maintain the illusion, left coffee out for me in the mornings, laughed a little louder at my dry jokes, asked if I wanted to watch something together after dinner. But I declined each time, gently but firmly. "I've got work to finish. I'm tired. Maybe another night." Eventually, she stopped trying. By the end of the second week, we were just two people occupying the same square footage, breathing the same air but living in separate worlds. She came home later and later, sometimes past midnight, always with the same vague excuses. The meeting ran long. Drinks with the team. Lost track of time. I stopped asking. That was my version of kindness. Letting her lie without interruption. Once, she came in smelling like him. I could tell. His cologne wasn't subtle. Neither was the way she tiptoed to avoid creaking floorboards. She stood in the doorway of the guest room, her silhouette soft in the hallway light. "Are we okay?" she asked. I looked up from the book I wasn't really reading. "Why wouldn't we be?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I don't know. You've just been different." I marked my page and closed the book. I'm just tired. And that was that. She left, and I heard our bedroom door click shut. I wasn't sleeping much. Instead, I found comfort in routine, things that felt tangible, controllable. I started waking up early to run. Bought groceries I knew only I liked. Cleaned the garage from top to bottom. And that's when the idea hit me. A trailer. I told her it was just a project. Something to tinker with in the evenings. I'd always wanted to build something like that, one of those minimalist camper-style setups with a bed, a kitchenette, a fold-out table. She smiled when I told her. Said, "That sounds fun. Like therapy." It wasn't therapy. It was escape disguised as renovation. I spent hours in that garage measuring, sawing, drilling, building. And I found a strange kind of peace there. Sawdust in the air, tools in my hand, headphones on. I wasn't thinking about her. I wasn't thinking about him. I was building something just for me. Something that had nothing to do with the life we used to share. She barely noticed. Sometimes she poked her head in, asked if I wanted tea. I'd shake my head without looking up. She'd stand there for a moment, then quietly leave. The longer I stayed detached, the more nervous she seemed to get. She wasn't used to not being in control. Haley had always been good at managing narratives, keeping things in line, but she couldn't manage this version of me. She couldn't shape my silence or predict my movements, and that scared her. One night, I came in late from the garage, hands still dusty, and found her in the kitchen. She had cooked something elaborate. The table was set. Candles. Wine. A playlist playing softly in the background. "Thought we could eat together," she said, smiling like it was 2018 again. I blinked, nodded, sat down. She poured wine, served my plate, made conversation like nothing had happened. Asked about my day, about the trailer, about the book on my nightstand. I answered politely, kept my tone even. But I didn't give her anything real, just surface tension. When dinner was over, she reached across the table and touched my hand. "I miss you," she said. I looked at her carefully done makeup, her tense shoulders, her eyes scanning mine for cracks, and I realized what this was. Not affection, not regret, fear. She was afraid I no longer needed her, and she was right. That was the real shift. It wasn't about anger anymore. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about detachment. I no longer needed answers. I no longer wanted to fix anything. I had gone quiet in the way a person does when they're already walking out the door in their mind. Later that week, I found her journal. I wasn't looking for it. It was tucked away between sweaters in the closet we no longer shared. I was reaching for a hoodie I'd left behind and felt the cover. Leather-bound. Familiar. I hesitated, then opened it. The first few pages were boring, work stress, random notes, lists. Then I found the part where it shifted. Started subtle. Mentions of Lucas. L. Said something funny today. L. Brought me coffee, remembered how I take it. Then it got more personal. Dreamed about him again. Had lunch alone with L. Felt nervous, excited, alive. My hands trembled as I flipped. Then I found the entry. I told Lucas I was scared. Not just about Mark, but everything. The life I built. The house. The past. But when I look at him, I see the future. I can't keep living a lie. I have to be honest with Mark soon. Especially now. And below that, a single sentence that made my chest cave in. Pregnancy test was positive. I closed the book. The trailer was almost finished. When you stop chasing someone, it's amazing how fast they turn around. It's like a switch flips. The second they feel your absence more than your presence, panic creeps in. That's what happened with Haley. After weeks of pretending not to notice my withdrawal, she finally realized I wasn't orbiting her anymore. I had stepped off the stage, and she didn't know how to act without an audience. It started with small things. She started waking up earlier, made coffee and left it on the counter for me, black with a splash of oat milk, just how I used to drink it before everything tasted like ash. One morning, I came into the kitchen to find my favorite mug waiting, steam curling from it like a white flag. The side read, "World's okayest husband." A dumb joke gift from years ago. She never laughed at it, but I did. I stared at it for a long second, then poured it down the sink. That same week, she began cooking again. Real meals. From scratch. Stir-fry, meatloaf, even lasagna. Always too much food. Always served with a smile like we were still playing house. Like I hadn't caught her building a second life in secret. She acted like the past 6 months had been a shared hallucination. One night, she brought me a plate in the garage while I was working on the trailer. "You've lost weight," she said, placing the food gently beside my wrench. "You never eat with me anymore." "I'm not hungry," I replied without looking up. She hovered for a moment. "Is it the trailer?" she asked. "Are you planning a trip?" I shrugged. "Just a project." She waited for more, but I didn't give it. I watched her from the corner of my eye as she nodded slowly, trying to act casual. "It looks good," she said. "You've been working hard." That's when I really knew. She felt the shift. She wasn't the center of gravity anymore. I was, and she hated it. The days blurred. Her attempts got bolder. She texted me during the day, memes, updates, memories. "Remember when we got lost in Boston? This song made me think of you." One day she sent a photo of an old Polaroid from our first apartment. Us on the floor, pizza boxes all around, grinning like idiots. She captioned it, "We were happy once, right?" I didn't respond. That night, I came home to candles lit in the living room. Soft music. Her on the couch in a sweater she used to wear back when things were simple. I stood in the doorway, watching her pretend like this was normal. "I was thinking we could watch a movie," she said, patting the cushion next to her. "No pressure. Just hang out." "I've got plans," I said, turning to go. "Mark," she called after me. Her voice cracked. I paused. For a second, I almost turned back. Almost gave her the moment she was trying to create. But then I saw her hand, tightening around her phone. The screen angled just slightly toward her thigh. Still hiding. Still lying. Still him. I walked out without another word. And that's when she snapped. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen with a pan full of burnt eggs and a mood sharp enough to cut steel. She slammed the spatula down and turned to me. "Are you even going to talk to me?" I sipped my coffee and sat at the table. "Seriously, Mark, I'm trying. I'm here. You're the one who's acting like a stranger." I looked up at her, really looked, and said, "You already replaced me. Why are you so upset that I stopped playing along?" She froze. That was the first direct acknowledgement. The first crack in the glass we'd both been pretending wasn't broken. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like she wasn't sure which mask to wear. "I never," she started, but I cut her off. "You lied. Over and over. You planned a whole new life behind my back. Don't insult me by pretending it wasn't real." Her face went pale. Her hands trembled. "You don't know everything," she whispered. "No," I said, standing. "But I know enough." She didn't stop me as I walked out. That afternoon, I went back to the journal. I hadn't touched it since finding that entry about the pregnancy. I told myself I didn't need to read more, that I'd already learned enough. But curiosity got the better of me. I sat on the garage floor, fingers tracing the leather cover like it might burn me. I opened to a random page near the middle. March 2nd. "We looked at strollers today. I told Lucas I wasn't ready, but part of me already feels like I'm building this new world with him. I can't even picture Mark as a father anymore. Isn't that awful? I used to dream about it. But now, he just feels like an old version of me, like a life I used to live." March 19th. He kissed my stomach this morning. I didn't stop him. I let him think this is his. I want it to be his. I don't even know if it is, but I want it to be. I want to forget everything before him. That line sat in my chest like a boulder. I let him think this is his. I closed the journal slowly. The air in the garage felt thick, electric. My heartbeat wasn't loud or fast. It was slow, heavy, like thunder in the distance. This wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't even just betrayal. It was erasure. She had rewritten our story, page by page, and torn out the chapters with my name on them. And still, she acted like we could fix it. Fix what? She was pregnant with another man's child. Maybe mine, maybe not, but she didn't care. She had decided that Lucas was the father she wanted, the story she preferred. I was just the editor she forgot to inform. That night I didn't eat, didn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table in the dark. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage. But nothing came out. No sound. Just breath and pulse and weight. The next morning, she was waiting for me. "I think we should talk," she said, standing at the counter with her arms folded, eyes glassy. I looked at her, really looked, and I saw someone I didn't recognize. A woman who had loved me once, maybe. A woman who had dreamed with me, but not anymore. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked. She hesitated. "Everything." I nodded. "Okay, then let's start with this." I reached into my back pocket and placed the journal on the counter. Her face drained of color. She reached for it, but I held it back. "I read it," I said. "All of it." Silence. "I know about the child. I know you're not sure who the father is. I know you lied to both of us." She covered her mouth with her hand. Her body folded in on itself. Mark, I didn't mean for." "You never do," I said. "You just do. And we all pay for it." She started crying. Real tears. Shaking. Sobbing. But I didn't move. "I was confused," she choked out. "I didn't know what I wanted. I was scared. I thought maybe. You thought maybe I'd take care of it," I finished for her. "That I'd step in and save you from your choices." She didn't answer. "I'm not angry," I said quietly. "Not anymore. I'm done feeling things for you." She looked at me then, and I saw it. The realization that I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't trying to guilt her or punish her. I was leaving. Even if my body was still here, I was already gone. A few days later, I added the final piece to the trailer, a latch on the inside of the back door. I installed blackout curtains, stocked the pantry, filled the little fridge with coffee and bread and canned soup. That night, I parked it in the driveway and slept there for the first time. No note, no announcement. She saw it in the morning, stood at the window watching me brush my teeth at the tiny sink. Her eyes red, her hand pressed to her stomach. She didn't say anything. Neither did I, because when something is truly over, it doesn't need a funeral. Just silence.